Have you ever heard a sound you couldn't explain? A faint whisper in the dead of night, so soft you almost convince yourself it was just the wind? Well, for one college student back in 2011, those whispers weren't just the wind. No signs of a struggle, no forced entry, nothing stolen. It had strange black lines drawn across it, almost like jagged tears. Nobody knew where it came from, or what it meant. A group whose members were only known by a single chilling sound, a whisper. Like most students, his life was a cycle of lectures, late-night study sessions at the library, and hanging out with friends. But recently, something had changed. For weeks, Arman had been hearing things. He could never make out the words, but the sound itself was enough to send a shiver down his spine. He tried telling his friends about it, but they just brushed it off. "It's an old building, Arman," they'd say. "It's probably just the pipes," or "You're just stressed from midterms." They'd laugh, and Arman would try to laugh along, but the feeling of unease never left him. The whispers felt intentional. They felt like they were meant for him. He started sleeping with his headphones on, blasting music to drown out the silence, but somehow, the whispers always found a way to cut through. One Tuesday evening, after a particularly grueling study session for his cognitive psychology exam, Arman trudged back to his dorm, exhausted. He was looking forward to collapsing into bed and forgetting about the whispers for at least a few hours. He unlocked his door, flipped on the light, and froze. There, sitting perfectly in the center of his wooden desk, was a mask. It was stark white, smooth and featureless, except for the thin black lines that looked like they'd been drawn on with a shaky hand. His heart hammered against his ribs. It was the same kind of mask described in the news reports about the student who had vanished a few years prior. His first instinct was to call campus security, to run, to do anything but stand there. But a morbid curiosity, the very trait that made him a good psychology student, took over. With a trembling hand, he reached out and picked it up. It was light, almost weightless. As he turned it over, he saw something scribbled on the inside in messy, hurried handwriting. It was a single, chilling message: "We have chosen you." On one side was the normal college student, attending classes and pretending everything was fine. On the other side was a young man consumed by a terrifying mystery. His curiosity about the mask and its origins was now tangled with a deep, gnawing fear. The nightly whispers seemed to grow louder, more insistent, as if they were waiting for an answer. Arman knew he was standing on the edge of a rabbit hole, and he was terrified of what he might find if he fell in. Arman started to pay closer attention to the people around him, the subtle shifts in the campus routine. He became an observer, a detective in his own life. That's when he noticed a strange pattern. Every Thursday night, without fail, a small, specific group of students would seem to vanish. They were from different majors, different social circles, but they had one thing in common. They were all quiet, reserved, the kind of people you wouldn't notice unless you were looking for them. They would disappear from the dining halls, the library, their dorms, only to reappear early Friday morning, looking tired but serene. He cross-referenced their schedules, their social media, anything he could find. And then he discovered the connection. He saw a picture from a campus event a few months back. Tucked away in one of the students' bags, barely visible, was the corner of a familiar white object, a mask. He went back and checked photos of the others. One had it peeking out of a locker, another had a sketch of it in their notebook. It was a faint trail, but it was there. Each of them owned the same kind of mask. The next Thursday night, Arman decided he couldn't just wait and wonder anymore. He had to know. As predicted, around 11 p.m., the group began to form. They didn't speak to each other. They just fell into step, moving with a silent, unified purpose. Arman kept his distance, using the campus architecture, the trees, the corners of buildings, as cover. He followed them as they left the well-lit paths of the university and headed toward the dark woods bordering the campus. The path led them to a dilapidated two-story building that had been abandoned for years, a place students told ghost stories about but never actually went near. The group slipped inside through a broken side door without a moment's hesitation. Arman circled the structure, his footsteps crunching on dead leaves, until he found a grimy, broken window. He peered through the cracked glass, and what he saw made his blood run cold. Inside, the vast, dusty room was lit by dozens of flickering candles. At least 30 people stood in a wide circle, all of them wearing the same blank white masks. The flickering light danced across their featureless faces, creating an army of silent, anonymous figures. In the center of the circle stood a tall man, distinguished only by the black robe he wore instead of regular clothes. He raised his hands, and a hush fell over the already silent room. "Remember," the man in the robe said, "we only whisper in silence." The air in the room grew thick and heavy, charged with a strange, unsettling energy. Arman felt like he was looking into the heart of a secret that was never meant to be seen. His foot slipped on a patch of damp moss, sending a loose rock skittering down the side of the building. The sound, though small, was like a gunshot in the dead quiet. Instantly, every masked head in the room snapped in his direction. But he was dragged inside, stumbling into the center of the circle. The candlelight blinded him for a second, and the sight of 30 identical staring masks was dizzying. The robed leader stepped forward, his movements slow and deliberate. He circled Arman, looking him up and down. The air was thick with the smell of dust and melting wax. "Curiosity is a powerful thing," the leader said, his voice a low hum. "It led you to us. You found the mask. You heard our call. You've been chosen, Arman." Hearing his name spoken by this masked stranger sent a fresh wave of terror through him. How did they know his name? "But now that you are here," the leader continued, "your choice is a simple one. Become one of us, or never return." A wave of defiance washed over Arman's fear. He looked around at the silent, masked figures. This wasn't a club, it was a prison. He turned and tried to bolt for the door, but the circle of members closed in, blocking his path. Then it started. A single soft whisper from one of the masks. It was joined by another, then another, and another. Soon, the room was filled with dozens of overlapping whispers, a cacophony of sibilant, unintelligible sounds. It was the noise from his dorm room magnified 100 times. The whispers grew louder and louder, swirling around him, pressing in on him. It was overwhelming, a sonic assault that seemed to burrow directly into his brain. Witnesses who lived near the woods later told police they heard a strange humming sound that night, like a swarm of angry bees which grew in intensity until it abruptly stopped. And then, there was only silence. Inside the abandoned building, the candles flickered over an empty space in the center of the circle. Arman was gone. On the dusty floor, all that remained was his own plain white mask. Days later, after Arman was officially reported missing, the police finally searched the abandoned building in the woods. They expected to find evidence of a cult, a struggle, something. But they found nothing. The building was empty. There were no candles, no robes, no people, and most unnervingly, no masks. It was as if the gathering Arman had witnessed had never happened at all. The dust on the floor was undisturbed, save for a single set of footprints that led in, and then simply stopped. Just as they were about to leave, one of the officers noticed something on a rickety wooden table in the corner of the room. It was a small black notebook, the kind you could buy at any campus bookstore. On its simple cover, a single word was written in elegant script: MindMelt. The officer opened it. The first few pages contained a list of names, written in neat, precise handwriting. The last name on the list was Arman. After that, every single page in the rest of the notebook was completely, unnervingly blank. The Whispering Mask Society had vanished, taking its secrets and Arman with it. So if one day you come back to your room and find a plain white mask sitting on your desk, be careful. And whatever you do, never ever trust the members of the Whispering Mask Society. Before you go, do the like button a favor and gift it a white mask. But just make sure it never ever starts whispering back. And if you enjoyed that story, be sure to follow for more strange, dark, and mysterious content delivered straight to your screen. Thanks for watching.